If you step out of a time machine 150 million years ago, the first thing that kills you is not a dinosaur. It is the air. You arrive and take a breath. Your lungs struggle to process the dense, heavy mixture of altered atmospheric gases. Look down from orbital altitude. The continents as you know them do not exist. They are crushed together into a single, suffocating superlandmass. Gondwana. The coastlines do not offer a reprieve from the hostility of the interior. The oceans do not shimmer in deep, inviting blues. They are a sickly, sun-baked turquoise. They are poisoned by heavy atmospheric carbon and choked by unyielding, planetary heat. You are taught a specific narrative about this era. You are given the myth of a lush, green greenhouse. A comfortable jungle paradise of endless ferns and gentle, slow-moving giants grazing in the mist. That narrative is a fiction born of modern human comfort. The reality of the late Jurassic is a hyper-arid death trap. Global temperatures run 15% hotter than the extreme peak of the modern baseline. Routine megadroughts scorch the interior savannas for decades at a time, turning rivers into dust. The heat evaporates the shallow lakes. It bakes the topsoil into cracked, impenetrable ceramic. And when the starvation sets in, cannibalism becomes a standard, mechanical response to systemic ecological failure. It is a brutal calibration of a collapsing food web. The predators are terrifying. But the sheer scale of the prey breaks the fundamental laws of physics. Colossal beasts weighing 70 tons wander through this suffocating, relentless heat. This presents a biological paradox. Massive bodies generate massive internal friction. Under a sun this punishing, a 70-ton organism should cook from the inside out. Its internal organs should liquefy. Its proteins should denature and collapse. Yet, they do not just survive. They dominate. Down in the cracked earth, a shrew-sized mammaliaform vibrates in the dry dust. It cowers in the vast shadow of the passing titans. It stays hidden. It hides because the surface world belongs to something alien. To survive this primordial furnace, biology has to stop evolving animals. It has to start engineering heavy machinery. Consider the absolute upper limit of biological load-bearing capacity. You are looking at Maripunisaurus. 70 tons of pressurized bone, muscle, and vascular fluid. You look at its immense neck and you see a grazing animal. You must look closer. The sauropod neck is an automated lattice crane. It is a 13-ton suspension system, rigged with pneumatic air sacs and high-tensile ligaments. It is engineered to harvest calories from heights no other organism can reach. It strips the high canopy with the systematic, unrelenting rhythm of an industrial harvester. The vertebrae supporting this structure are not solid bone. They are porous. They are a honeycomb scaffolding designed to reduce the overall chassis weight while maximizing structural torque. To build a 70-ton machine requires immense, planetary resources. To sustain it requires an endless intake of raw fuel. To dismantle it requires an equally terrifying system of destruction. The ecosystem demands a butcher. It creates the Allosaurus. This singular chassis accounts for 75% of all carnivore remains in the fossil record. This is a terrifying level of predatory monoculture. An apex dominance so absolute it strangles all competing designs. You look at its massive jaws and you imagine crushing, blunt force trauma. But the teeth are not designed to crush. They are serrated industrial saw blades. They are biological shears calibrated to slice through thick flesh and initiate rapid, systemic exsanguination. The predator does not wait for the massive prey to die from the initial impact. It bleeds the target out like a punctured hydraulic line. And as the relentless midday sun beats down on the baked earth, blurring the horizon into a wavering, hypnotic mirage of dust and rising heat, the ambient sounds of the Jurassic savanna fall dead away into an absolute, suffocating silence. You are now looking through the eyes of the Allosaurus. The vision shifts. It does not see the world as you do. It sees the landscape in high-contrast thermal gradients. It watches the heat radiating from the massive, blood-filled bodies of its prey. It stalks the thermal signatures cutting through the shimmering distortion of the savanna. We return to the core paradox. How does a 70-ton mass survive a boiling world without incinerating its own viscera? The answer lies deep inside the biological chassis. Look through the thick, leathery flesh. A slow-motion cross-section of the sauropod body reveals a colossal, churning conveyor belt. Deep ochre and organic greens move steadily through a multi-chambered fermentation vat. The internal architecture is a living thermodynamic cooling tower. Massive networks of respiratory air sacs pump oxygen down the immense neck, acting as a planetary-scale heatsink. Every exhalation vents the internal furnace. Niche partitioning, a brutal corporate non-compete agreement enforced by the blind hand of evolution. The towering giants eat the high canopy. The heavily armored tanks eat the low brush. They do not compete. They survive the crushing heat through supersized industrial efficiency. They outgrow the very concept of being hunted. Look at the Stegosaurus. Its back is lined with dense plates. Osteoderms, subdermal ballistic plating embedded directly into the skin. These are not just armor. They are vascularized thermal radiators. Blood pumps through the deep grooves in the bone, cooling in the open air before cycling back into the massive core. The animal is a walking radiator block. Hemolymph and blood do not just circulate. They flow like pressurized hydraulic fluid, driving the massive leg columns forward through the thick mud. But when conflict is forced upon them, the violence is catastrophic. A thermal signature steps too close to the armored flanks of a Stegosaurus. The thagomizer, an 8-spike tail assembly acting as a biological morningstar, swings through the heavy air. At 50 miles per hour. Faster than a modern vehicle impact. Look beneath the skin of the engagement. A monochrome bone-white sequence against a dark crimson splash. The heavy spikes strike the Allosaurus femur. The kinetic load transfers in a fraction of a second through the dense calcium matrix. The femur shatters into 100 splintered fragments. The predator drops to the baked earth. The savanna claims another corpse to feed the soil. The true antagonist of this era is not the predator with the saw-blade teeth. The villain is the planet itself. The Gelatinous Ocean acts as an ancient, tectonic beast that floods half of what becomes the European continent. It turns massive landmasses into isolated, flooded island prisons. You step into the coastal water. It is thick. It moves with a heavy, gelatinous viscosity. The surface temperature is 32.1 degrees Celsius. 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It is the temperature of a hot bath. It is 25% hotter than modern ocean averages. The water is an acidic, slow-cooking primordial soup. It strips the protective layers from organic material. Deep below, where the ocean should freeze, the abyssal zone sits at an unnatural 17 degrees. It is a dark, heavy world devoid of cold. The engine driving this global oven lies hidden beneath the waves. TAMU Massif. A planetary exhaust pipe larger than the entire landmass of California. It is a tectonic engine spewing acid, carbon dioxide, and molten heat into the dark water. It regulates the extreme atmospheric chemistry of the entire epoch. It forces terrestrial life to adapt to a suffocating, greenhouse pressure. You cannot sweat. The humidity forces the heat back into your flesh. The air feels violently heavy on your bare skin. It is a dense, damp blanket of carbon dioxide that presses into your lungs with every breath. And then you feel the vibration. A low-frequency infrasound. It vibrates in your chest cavity miles before it ever reaches your ears. The synchronized walking of 70-ton titans creates an acoustic wave. Acoustic pressure equivalent to a Saturn V rocket launching at a distance of 2 miles. It rattles the calcium in your teeth. It ripples the surface of the boiling, turquoise oceans. These titans are not a temporary biological experiment. They are a hardened evolutionary dynasty. They are the survivors. They endure the apocalyptic conditions of the Middle Jurassic. They carry the genetic scars of the Pliensbachian-Torsion extinction event, an era that wiped their weaker ancestors from the fossil record. They hold on to ecological dominance for tens of millions of years in conditions that liquefy modern ecosystems. They are the supreme masters of a hyper-arid, volcanic hellscape. Yet, as the giants wage their endless thermodynamic war against the sky and the soil, something else watches from the dark edges of the world. Human beings possess a dangerous habit. We view ourselves as the absolute pinnacle of the biological timeline. You look at your concrete cities, your digital networks, and your climate-controlled rooms, and you assume you have conquered the Earth. You are mistaken. You could not survive a single afternoon in the Morrison Formation. Your lungs burn from the dense, toxic air. Your skin blisters under the unfiltered radiation of the Jurassic sun. You exist as nothing but an insignificant, fragile protein source in a world governed by industrial flesh and mechanical violence. We look back at the fossils and we apply our own biases. The Allosaurus is not a monster. It is a flawless calibration of population control. It is a biologically perfect system. It holds the throne of ecological dominance for a span of time that humans have not even begun to approach. We consider ourselves the ultimate winners of the evolutionary race. But 150 million years ago, our direct ancestors sit as nothing but shivering, shrew-sized mammaliaforms hiding in the dirt. We must return to that tiny creature vibrating in the dust of the savannah. You look at it and you see a coward. You see an evolutionary loser, relegated to the dark, forgotten corners of a hostile world. It is not a loser. It is a biological black box recorder. It carries the microscopic, encoded genetic data that eventually builds your hands, your eyes, and your brain. It survives the planetary furnace that cooks the gods of the Earth. It waits in the dark, calibrating its internal systems, waiting for the atmosphere to choke the 70-ton machines into extinction. We do not win the brutal war of evolution through strength, intelligence, or superiority. We outlast the fire. We inherit the ash. The Earth operates on endless cycles of unimaginable scale, deep time, and thermodynamic violence. It does not care about our buildings or our borders. It creates and destroys vast biological dynasties with a cold, terrifying indifference. If the planet could build a world this massive and this hot, once before, what makes us think it will not decide to burn us out to make room for the next age of giants?